we're not looking for one specific narrative, and we're not a good news campaign for Africa. What we are is that there are multiplicity of narratives. There's a multiplicity of stories, and these are currently not represented globally.
How filmmakers can actually change the narrative, because that is very critical. That is something you're very passionate about. So first of all, the storytelling in Africa, how have you seen it? Is it something that you think has done justice to the continent, or there are definitely need for talent, for filmmakers out of the continent to actually look at the way they present? Like Jade sitting next to you did a film on Slum, but and that's what she's passionate about. So how do we actually, bridge that, make sure that we're not also portraying the continent in a very negative light, at the same time driving, pursuing the things that they are passionate about? Yeah.
No, great. It's a great question, because I just want to go back one step and explain what I do first. So Africa No Filter was set up about 3 years ago. We're funded by US and UK foundations to shift the stereotypical narratives that still persist about Africa today. And it's the narratives that we've identified are things like Africa is broken because everybody's trying to fix us, that Africa is dependent, we're always looking for money from outside, and that Africans lack the agency to make the change that they want to see. So those are the three narratives. And what we're trying to do is shift people into understanding that Africa has changed. There's a lot of progress. And that we're not looking for one specific narrative, and we're not a good news campaign for Africa. What we are is that there are multiplicity of narratives. There's a multiplicity of stories, and these are currently not represented globally. And I'll just say this one thing. One of the first things we did a study with the University of Southern California to look at what Americans understood about Africa. What were they seeing? What were they viewing? They looked at 700,000 pieces of content on television across America. And they found two really interesting points. That what most Americans knew about Africa was around our politics and crime. And the crime came in the way of stories or series where the only African, and it was never like a specific country, it was like a black person speaking in an African sounding, we never knew where this person was from. Their storyline was invariably always criminal, or always negative. So, what Americans are consuming about us impacts how they see us, and that's why Africa No Filter came. So I just want to give that context first. And the reason why I'm actually sitting here is because I think films are such a powerful way of influencing the way the world sees the world. So when I think about my experience and how I think about America, it's not because I watched American news, it's because I watched their series, I watched their films. I watched Top Gun. That's why I think America's a superpower. So films have such a powerful role to play, and I feel that we're leaving value on the table with our African films if we don't use them as a tool to change the way the world sees us, because it also influences the way we, as Africans, see ourselves. So what I ask of filmmakers, while you're busy making your film and doing all the stuff, and I know it's a lot, and you want to tell stories that are passionate, that mean something to you, think about the narrative. Think about the narrative you're leaving behind. If I'm watching your film, am I walking away thinking, corruption, poverty, disease, conflict? Are those the things that you want me to leave with? And we ask filmmakers to do two things: tell stories better and tell better stories. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. By tell stories better, we can tell the difficult stories, but there's a way we can tell them where we don't leave the person thinking the hero is the corruption or the beaten down African woman, because African women are always beaten down. We don't have to make those issues the heroes of our stories. And I use the example often of like when NSARS, and this is a real life thing, and a lot of people, and some films came out of this, that when I saw the reporting on NSARS in Nigeria. And for those of you who don't know about NSARS, it's when young people were complaining, or I don't
police brutality.
they were not complaining, but it was police brutality issues. So they marched, they went out on the streets, they were protesting. When I saw it, it was very much, Nigeria's descended into chaos. And it was But that wasn't the story. It was actually a story of young people taking agency to make the change that they wanted to see. Absolutely. It's the same story, but you can tell it in a different way. And that's what we mean when we say tell stories better. But what we would prefer is for you to tell better stories. There is a multiplicity of stories out there, of inspiring stories, of people doing amazing things. And if you think about why people go to the cinema and why films like Wedding Party were so popular, it's because they were light, they were fun, they were entertainment. Don't forget, we go to the cinema for escapism. And I feel that there's that element of film that we as Africans, I think Nigerians have got it, actually. I have to say, the Nigerian film industry is a bit of an anomaly because it was entirely on audience. Yep. It was driven by audience, it was driven by commercial. So you had to make content the audience wanted to see. And actually, the audience want inspiring content. They want content that's going to lift them. Nigerians have got it. And maybe I should just be quiet now, but I'll say it. I found that a lot of maybe films from the Francophone part of Africa tend to be more art house movies, tend to be darker movies, and they tend to, I feel, are going after the festival circuit, not really for the audience back home. And I feel filmmakers have got to be driven by the audience. That's the only way for sustainability. Now, what was the question you actually asked me?
Thank you. That was really, really interesting to see you actually helping us understand better what you're doing. And well done. Thank you for all you're doing, to help shape the narrative on how Africa is perceived. But there's actually one thing that you also do, or rather, the major thing you do, funding. There are a lot of filmmakers here who actually, like in Nigeria, where we come from, we don't have that luxury of grants. Right, and as a result, we are self-sustained, self-funded. Moses has already talked a lot about that in the first session. So the question is, how can talent here, African producers, directors, writers like Jade and the rest of them in the audience, be able to, access the kind of funding that's available to you, and how can they understand better how to access grants? And at what point does this come into play in the course of their production?
Okay. So one of the things African No Filter does is we are a grant maker. So we give out a certain number of grants to storytellers because we believe storytellers are the ones that can shift the narrative. But what we've done with filmmakers, because our entire grant budget...
Can you differentiate story makers, filmmakers?
No, well, storytellers. So it could be from a script writer to, producer to, anybody who wants to make the film or content creator. So what we've done, because our entire budget for a year could probably be your production budget for gangs. So we realized that we play in a very, very kind of small space when it comes to films. So what we decided to do is we launched the Last Mile Film Fund. Because what we realized, a lot of filmmakers, they're so busy on production, which is critical because you have to have a product. But when it comes to the marketing of the product, going to festivals, just doing that last bit of maybe stuff in post-production that you forgot, we give funds for that. It's called the Last Mile. It's to get you over that little bit to finalize your film, but also to help you market the film, because often that's where people don't have funds or the money's been spent on the production. And we actually, for us, it's important because we can't fund development, because development often, well, in some cases, doesn't actually amount to a film, or it could take 5 years, and we may not be around in 5 years. But with the Last Mile Film Fund, I get to see the content, because we don't just fund filmmakers. We fund filmmakers trying to change the way the world sees Africa through their film. So it's not, so we need to see something. It can't just be the idea. So it's good that we have a film we can see, and then, it's almost close to finalization, and then we give you money. And I'll tell you, the good thing about African No Filter is that a lot of people say to us, oh, but, to get funding from this person, you need to know somebody. No, you don't. You need to have a social media account, because all of our film call-out, in fact, all of our call-outs are put out on social media for that reason. Because if you follow us, you will know when our grant call-outs are open, and that's really important. It means a lot more work for us, because when you open it up, people with everything from buying me a cell phone to, send me to school, apply. So what we have done is we've done courses, webinars on how to apply for grant funding. You'll imagine putting together a budget is quite difficult for creatives. Just understanding where, and we have something called Hot Opportunities, which we put out on our social media, which tells you where all the funding, grant funding opportunities are. There's a lot of money out there, soft money, not debt, not equity, and it might not be big money, but it'll help towards a bit of production here. But there's a lot of money out there if you know how the development world works, and that's the world I sit in. And there's a lot more people trying to use creatives to tell issues-based stories. So that's an opportunity, and so just have a social media account, follow Africa No Filter.